So thank you for joining us today, Kelly. I know you're extremely busy. Kelly has been head of Crystal Springs Upland for 1 year. She started on July 1st, but she's been part of the school community for many years before that, serving as head of college counseling from 2009 to 2012, and then being the lead, the head of the upper school for 6 years. Kelly is very deeply committed to women in leadership and was actually a guest presenter at our Women in Leadership Conference with CATDC in January. So many of you saw her there, I am sure. And she's also deeply committed to being a good parent. And one of her proudest roles she describes is being mother to Mac, age 6, and Sibby, age 4. So Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I know you've been busy. I can't even actually imagine. So how would you describe the start of this school year, 2020?
Well, thank you, Lisa, so much for having me. It is such an honor to get to talk to you. Yeah, this school year, you know, it's so funny. I was describing it to, this week is our faculty retreat. And I was describing to everyone that, you know, I feel like I've been planning for the start of the school year for years now. the weeks feel like years. And yet it still snuck up on me. You know, like I woke up and was like, oh my gosh, like this is the week that it's a faculty retreat. Next week our students come. And in some ways, it's very similar to years before in that I feel similar levels of exhaustion and exhilaration about the year ahead. But to your point, it has definitely been, the preparation for the year has been one that has required great agility and flexibility and patience as we've had to pivot, as I know every school has, multiple times, and feel like we have to really reinvent ourselves, you know, completely, which I know CATDC has done as well. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've probably found this too, that we would never wish this upon ourselves, and yet there is some way in which it's pushed us to grow faster, to think even more about all of our students and their well-being in new and different ways.
Yes.
So you said you were at a faculty retreat these last 2 days. I imagine that COVID-19 and safety is one of the deep themes of that. But what else are you really grappling with at your faculty retreat? What is the other key theme that you're really?
Yeah, I would say that the main, you know, we don't have a theme per se, but I would say the main focus is community and connection. And again, I think that is always the case of faculty retreats when people have been away for 2 months from campus and haven't seen each other. But there is just an urgency to feel connected. And it's also incredibly ironic to me that in this year where our faculty retreat is completely virtual, I've never felt closer to the people with whom I work. And you know, we've had our typical sessions on equity and technology and sort of nuts and bolts and mandated reporting and all the things, but we're being so deliberate to make sure that each of those really allow opportunities for connection and care. And I've been so proud. I was worried about this week to know sort of how people were going to show up, and my heart has been so full every single day to see how excited and engaged and vulnerable everybody is in approaching this year.
Wow, that's really inspiring to hear and very affirming. And that idea of community and connection is so central to CATDC. And I wonder if you can talk for a moment. Crystal Springs Upland School has been so involved with our programs this summer. We had 15 people at Equity is Excellence. Yeah. And I wonder you can speak to what learning has been shared from just even that conference this summer.
Absolutely. Well, I mentioned, you know, an equity session or 2 sessions that we had during our faculty retreat led by our amazing Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, Tate Wade. Shout out to her. And it's funny, there was so much of the workshops that we did that referenced back to the time we had at Equity is Excellence. I was so proud that we had 15 members of our professional community participate in that, from teachers to advancement officers. Our entire senior leadership team participated. And I think, you know, what a huge takeaway and a commonality for all of us was just, which we knew going in, but I think it was just cemented during our 4 days there, was just how equity work cannot be a side project, how it can't just reside in the office of the Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, And that this work it's not optional. You know, this is work that we all need to do. And I loved, you know, Elizabeth Denevi kicking it off with talking about how DEI is essential to and not disconnected from educational excellence. I mean, that was just such a grounding foundation. And then a highlight for me, and I think for many others, were the accountability groups that we had, just because it allowed us to connect with others at schools who shared similar roles, which, you know, for me being a head of school, getting to connect in a group with other heads and board members, it's so affirming to be able to talk about your learning through that lens and looking at it through the particular sphere of influence that you have. So, you know, the work of Equity is Excellence, what I love about it, especially because we had so many people attend, is that it's not a one and done workshop where we check the box and they're like, okay, let's move on. You know, we are, our advancement office, for example, in their meetings that they're having, you know, are inviting our Chief Equity Inclusion Officer and to keep them accountable and to make sure that they are prioritizing and centering DEI work in all facets of their work. So it's been, it was such an amazing opportunity to be able to share that with so many people within our community, and then to keep sharing it out. You know, the idea that the learning leaves here and we're bringing it to our community, and hopefully, you know, we're bringing it beyond that.
That's great. Definitely feeling that ripple can move out and beyond in such an impactful way. And the accountability groups that we started this year, that was the first time we did that, and that's because we took the conference online, and that is something that we'll keep. I often think of CATDC as a kind of accountability, large accountability community. That is, that we all need to keep growing and stretching ourselves as educators in order to better serve our students. And I wonder if you can speak for a moment, Kelly, about just being a part of CATDC, a member school. How does that serve you? How does that serve the Crystal community?
Yeah, well, I love that you brought up how CATDC in itself is an accountability group, because it's a network of other schools. What I love is that we're able to leverage assets, whether that's people, practices, information, you know, towards this common purpose. This isn't something that's proprietary that, you know, that we keep to ourselves, but rather that, you know, it makes sense because it's in the betterment of students and society that we share these best practices. So for me, there was no question when the invoice came for CATDC, there was no question in my mind that we'd be paying for that and we'd be committing once again because of just the deep relationship. And I think also, I mean, I just want to give you all credit. You in such a quick amount of time, pivoted yourselves. And I am just always blown away by the relevance of the workshops that you have. It's like, you know, 3 days after something happens within schools or whatever it is, it feels like you all have a relevant workshop for us to take. And it just points to the responsiveness and the deep commitment that you all have to the needs of our faculty and sort of bring together a larger community of educators. So I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I also think it's been really powerful to see you all model what great teaching looks like in a digital format, so that it's not just the what, but it's the how. And again, huge kudos to you and your team.
Well, thank you. You've really made me feel good about what we're doing, Kelly. I'm just so delighted that you've been such an integral part of this pivot and the shift for CATDC. And just again, reaching out to all of you in the CATDC community. I hope that you'll just continue to participate in these programs that we offer, to step forward, but potentially lead programs. And we will do our best to be responsive to you in these really challenging and changing times. So Kelly, I wish you all the best as you get this school year underway. And I'm so excited to hear how excited you are. And to all of you, best of luck with the beginning of the school year.
It's going to be a great year for all of us.